Welcome to ResV, everybody. Coach Reslow here. I hope everyone's had a solid week. Of course, here at ResV, it's been pretty busy, and I'm behind on some things that I wanted to accomplish. Generally, I like to have my interviews out on Saturday at 1 p.m., but this time, dropped the ball. But I'm lucky because my guest, who, quite frankly, is a good friend of mine, and, quite frankly, slums it up hanging out with me. Jack Pincince agreed to do this interview here on Sunday, so I'm really excited to have him. Jack, welcome to the show. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, my pleasure. It was always on the docket. But again, of course, I was supposed to be earlier, but I just couldn't make it work. But here we are now. What's going on? And yeah, I mean, I think I saw you yesterday, just talking to some South County stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's most of what's going on right now. I'm in school, and then other than that, mostly just doing South County stuff. We're in the middle of tryouts, as you know.
Yeah. And a lot of good talent in that gym, man. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for the season.
And you do the 18-2s for them?
Yep.
How's it been for the last couple of years?
I've really enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying that. I feel like the level of talent in the gym increases every year, so it becomes I feel like we're getting more and more competitive with your 18-1s, you know?
Yeah, you guys will beat me at some point, but when it happens, one can never tell. But I remember when we took it over in 2020, it was you, me, and Ben Lind, and
Yep.
it was pretty wild that first season because it was during COVID too.
I was telling one of the other new guys about it just yesterday. I was talking about how it was like the three of us with not even enough kids for two teams,
Mm,
playing hour and a half practices once a week,
yeah,
like playing these tournaments that didn't happen because of COVID. Remember
that's
that
right. That's right. That tournament didn't occur. No, no.
tournament?
Yeah, it was a very interesting start to club because I had never done club. I was a college coach, and certainly I knew what club was because that's where all my recruiting pool was. That's where I went to go recruit players, but I never actually was involved in that world. And here you and I are going, this is nuts. Like, what are we doing right now? Wearing masks to boot.
Yeah, don't miss that.
No, 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 not at all. But now, yeah, I mean, you could talk about last year a little bit when we in South County, we had a real good year. 18-1s played very well. 18-2s played very well. Like you won yourself a gold medal.
Hmm.
And I had a couple as well. And Ben Lind and his 18-2s, 18-3s team, excuse me, was doing really well. I mean, we've just had success, and that success has breeded more players to come into our gym for tryouts this year. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where we're going to go, and it's also allowed us to expand our coaching tree as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great having, what is it now, 14
Mhm.
coaches?
I believe so. Yeah, something like that. But it's yeah, I like to see where it grows. I mean, I'm always looking for that next possibility of coaching in college again. However, I don't foresee it happening anytime soon. There's nothing happening in Rhode Island that I know about. So, club world's where I'm going to make my bones for a little bit. But you also have played professional volleyball. You played for Boston Bounce for a little bit as a left side attacker. Talk to that a little bit. Did you think that that was the direction you were going to go once your volleyball career ended for college?
Oh man, once we were done at Johnson and Wales, I really had no idea. I thought about going back to college, someplace else, transferring to play somewhere else. That just didn't pan out, mostly
Mm.
a money thing. So I ended up finishing at Johnson and Wales. But playing with Bounce was great. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. Learned that there was a lot of things I still didn't know how to do right.
What was the number one thing that you had to work on when you entered that world?
Oh man, got to be blocking.
Mm.
I was really bad. I'm probably still really bad. I don't know.
Well, you're probably not as bad as you think because when you start playing against men who are really, really good, like you don't block as much as you think. Like those dudes are scoring just because they're elite and doing some cool stuff. And there's a couple guys in that bounce team that have gone on to be in the USAV national pipeline too, right?
I think so. Yeah. So the season before I joined, Jalen Penrose was with the team.
Yeah.
He does some playing with USAV. Who else? I remember this one guy we played against from Northeast Force, Tim McIntosh.
Mhm.
I remember one time we played a tournament. I ripped a jump serve that I was like, just coming off my hand, I was like, that's an ace right there.
Mm.
He passes an absolute nail off of it. And I was like, whoa, what was that? Uh,
How'd you do that?
so yeah, he trains with the national team now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was really cool. It was definitely like the highest level of ball I've gotten to play.
And now you're getting another degree and playing for the club team for Rhode Island.
Yep.
And you took them you took them to the national finals or the semifinals.
Semifinals, yep, in Kansas City.
How'd you lose that match?
Uh, had some struggles passing the ball.
How close is
Most
that? Actually, that's a great question. I want to build on that before we go into your background a little bit. How close is, you said Boston Bounce probably the highest volleyball you've seen, and indoor anyway.
Mhm.
Um, how close was what we were doing at Johnson and Wales to that, and how close and what was the comparison between Johnson and Wales and Rhode Island Club?
Um, I would say our time at Johnson Wales. I mean, that was obviously it was not the same as Boston Bounce, but it was the closest thing I've played.
Mm,
Especially because we pretty consistently played at least good teams.
hmm.
We didn't have many matches that were stinkers.
Right.
Um, Playing club volleyball, like there's some real good teams out there, but there's also some times when you play a team where you could just sleepwalk through it. And it's these like, it's a bunch of guys who didn't go to school to play volleyball. They're there, and then they've also decided to join the club,
Hmm.
and that's great. But it's just not the same. You don't get the same quality match in and match out.
And the training's different too, right? I mean, at Johnson and Wales at a varsity program, and it doesn't have to be JWO, it could be Wentworth, it could be Riviera, it could be, and those are all the D3 schools quickly, but certainly there's D1 as well. But the D1, D2, and the D3 worlds, you're playing Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, and then
Yep.
you get one day off and you're doing tournaments and you're playing teams and whatnot. But with club, I mean, you're practicing once, maybe twice a week?
Yeah, we get 2 practices a week, 3 if we're really lucky, and then we've only got, I think, we get 3 tournament days, I think, this fall, and maybe 4 in the spring, and then we go to nationals,
Yeah.
as opposed to playing like 2, maybe 3 matches a week.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just a different feel, a different environment, and then
Yeah,
all the other things with a varsity sport, like the lifting sessions, the film sessions, the breakdowns, all that fun stuff, and then also the charity work and I mean, it's just a different field, different
yeah,
environment entirely.
you kind of live it when you're in
Yep,
the NCAA.
yep, yep. NAIA too. They have the same sort of feel. NAIA and NCAA are very comparable. In fact, they're really just two heads of the same coin, but different corporations. So, wherever you go, you still got that same feel. All right. So let's go backwards now. So we know this is where you're at, but how'd you get into the sport initially? I mean, from what I heard, you were a soccer player initially.
I was, yeah, I played soccer for like 10 years before I ever started playing volleyball. Still love the sport, but I got better at volleyball pretty quick.
Mm.
So my mother played in high school and she was pretty good.
Hmm.
She was all state 3 times. So that's where I kind of first heard of the sport.
Hmm.
And I just decided to try out freshman year. I was not great, but I still liked it, so I stuck with it.
Hmm.
I improved pretty quickly because I played some club starting my sophomore year of high school.
Hmm.
And then yeah, I had played 2 years of JV, 2 years of varsity, and then you came looking for me.
The other thing too is during that time period, were you like an avid weightlifter? Like, did you lift? Did you spend time in the weight room?
Um, yeah, starting I think sophomore year of high school, I was pretty big into working out. Spent a lot of time in the garage just doing push-ups, and then when I could, I would be at the gym.
Yeah, because when I went to recruit Jack, when I went to recruit you, you were the most physically imposing high school senior I had seen in Rhode Island. Like you were, 6 feet tall. You were built like you were out of granite. Like you were just absolutely the strongest dude out there. and you just sprung off the floor. And I was like, yep, that's the guy we want. Like, we want to see if we can get that guy to come to Wales. And when I came looking for you, I remember there was a lot of other coaches that were definitely interested in you, and I got the greatest sort of, how do I describe this? The greatest sort of sly line from Coach Evangeliо, because we're at Wentworth, and he's like, "Are you looking at Jack Pincince?" I said, "Oh, I certainly am." He's like, "Yeah, we don't really want him." Like, "Oh, really? That's great. Cool. Well, we're gonna really go after him hard." And then later on, I found out, he told me, he's like, "I was hoping to throw you off the scent with that line." I
Yeah.
was like, "Dude, just lied to me that you just tell me you thought he was good. Then I would have felt good that I was on the right track."
Yeah, I remember he came and talked to me after one of our club tournaments, gave me his card and everything, and invited me up for a visit.
Yeah,
So I watched the game. But
I'll
yeah,
never forget.
that was BS.
Yeah, he was, and it was, and not that I hadn't heard about the game within the game that coaches play in the recruiting world and just in general. Like, if one of the things that, if you don't know anything about Coach Giglio, is that he plays it off pretty smooth no matter what. "Hey, coach, how's your team looking today?" We're going to be terrible. We're just awful. They're ranked 4th in the country. We're just going to be terrible. It's not going to be good. Like, "Well, I don't know. You got pieces of the puzzle. It's never going to work." Like, "Oh, all right, fine." And I've had coaches tell me that before. I've had coaches feed me the line, all this stuff. But I thought that one was really funny. "Yeah, we're not interested. He's just, probably not going to work." But you came to JWU and you had a good career for us. I mean, really, the tragedy of the whole thing was JWU shut down your collegiate career before it got to finish. I've been an advent supporter of the idea that you would have been our first All-American. Like, you were scoring in bunches, you were hard to stop, you blocked pretty well for our league, and you passed pretty well. I'll never forget, we're playing Nazareth, and Cal Wickens was like, we were doing hitting lines. He's like, "Who the hell is that guy?" Like, "That's Jack. Is he playing against us? He didn't play against the other team." I'm like, "Well, he's going to play against you guys." And then you went off and we got a big W there. And, we had never beaten Az before. And then afterwards, "Great match, Cal." He's like, "Yeah, whatever. You hit that guy so you could kick our ass." That was not the case. It was not actually why you didn't play the first
That's because I
match
couldn't pass.
it's Endicott. But you figured it out. And then, we went on a run where we beat some really good teams. We beat a St. John Fisher team that was ranked. We beat a UC Santa Cruz team that was ranked. And this is in the 2 years of your career that you were playing and working hard for us. But yeah, I mean, any feelings or thoughts on that career, that quick career you had for us?
I just wish it hadn't been so quick. I mean, it was really just a year and a half, season and a half. It was kind of, a lot of unfinished business, really.
No, you ain't kidding. You ain't kidding.
Yeah.
What was the number one thing that you were working on during that time period? What were you trying to get better at, and how did you how did you make those moves to improve?
For a very long time, it was my passing, I think, was what kept me off the floor.
Because your arms are too big.
Must be it. So yeah, I mean, more than anything, I spent a long time focusing on passing. Looking back on it, I think some of my problems might have been a little more like just relaxing into the game.
Hmm.
Sometimes I was a little too stressed. I was like, I got to nail this pass. You don't have to nail this pass. I don't know. You need to create a good body of work, but you can't stress every rep.
Right.
But yeah, I spent a long time working on passing. I remember you brought Garrett into the gym,
Mm-hmm.
and that was helpful because Garrett had, I don't know, he didn't spend very long with us, but he's a fountain of knowledge.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was an All-American at RIV, and I always felt that Garrett was really good at sort of explaining the game. He reminded me of Kevin Harrington that way. Like, he could come in and make it pretty usable. "Hey, this is the information, and you can do it. Here's how I would do it." And I really like guys that are never really pushing education or coaching on somebody. Like, I never wanted to be that coach. It's like, hey, you're gonna do it my way or else, and blah blah blah. You know, that type of thing. Where Kevin and Garrett kind of like, hey, I'm seeing this. This is what I would do. Give it a try. I feel that's a better, coaching mechanism than to be confrontational with it. And I thought Garrett was really good at that, and he certainly could pass the ball. He was pretty good at that.
Yep.
Deep dish setter though, but really good at passing the ball.
Oh man, don't let him hear you say that.
Oh, dude, he used to hold on to that thing forever. Like he'd be up in there, he'd be decent pass to tight pass, jump, grab it, hold on to it for 30 seconds, see where the block is going, and then launch it somewhere else. And for some reason, every referee in the country was okay with it. I don't understand, but he beat us many times that way.
But yeah, he was very helpful for me. I really like the one of his biggest tips is to have an ABC for every skill, where you've got like three, because there's so many things that go into every single skill. If you're thinking about every one all the time, then you're not really focused on anything.
Right.
You pick your three things and you lock in on those and you do those right. Whatever's gonna, your three most important cues to get you to perform the skill correctly.
Yeah, no, I like that too. He talked about that on the interview that we did with him, and I thought, my system that I've created through the knowledge that I've gained throughout my career, and a lot of it has to do with systemizing every part of volleyball. So when we pass, we do the X, Y, and Z. We block because we're doing X, Y, and Z. But there's more than three, and then to hear Garrett, and then also hear you, talk about how important it was for you, that information, to just go to three parts. Now I want to sit back and redesign what I've done, because you don't want to the key to anything in volleyball, especially with really high level, because there's a lot of information, a lot of stimuli that's coming at you at once, is you don't want to overload the brain. Like you don't want to be thinking about 4 different things, 5 different things, 6 different things, because then you said it perfectly. You're not really focused on anything. You're frazzled. And then if we go to the Nancy Samara model about the performance base, where, if you're at peak performance, you're at the top of the curve. But if you're on one side, you're overloaded. If you're bored. And if bored and overloaded are virtually the same, and it leads to just terrible execution, you want to avoid that at all costs. So now just having 3 things to focus on that allows you to relax and do the job to the best of your ability. Hopefully that keeps you at peak performance. You don't want to have 5 or 6 things. So totally, it's made me sit and think about it. Like, all right, well, my system's kind of cool, but is it too much? Like, like for example, what do you do, Jack, when you have a triple block and the ball is not where you want it? If you remember in my system, there's like 5 different things, right? There's, if you see a seam, bang it, get the kill. If, it's too tight, see if you can recycle. If it's, still sort of ugly, we try to put it to the setter. If that doesn't work, we're thinking about taking an option away. And if nothing else, we're trying to keep it in. So it's 5 different options that you can think about. Can we shave that down to 3 and make it even easier? Get the kill, find the setter, or take an option. And then maybe that's a little bit better, with the obvious being, hey, don't error here.
Yeah.
But I like the ABCs a lot. He's been good. He's been good that way.
Yeah. Well, I would say that I think it's good to have, not everything can be broken down to just 3 things. So maybe when you're thinking about it in the practice gym, you've got more things going on. But then just when it comes to game time and you've got to execute, just whatever 3 things get you to do it right in that moment. You know what I mean?
What was the biggest game you played in college?
I don't know. There were a few. Because it kind of depends on context. So the game we played against UC Santa Cruz was big. I'm sure you remember that one.
I do.
We win that in 5 sets. Kind of an ugly game, but we did what we had to do.
It was the J-Wu way.
We got the W. That's all that
That's
matters.
all you gotta do is get the W.
Yep.
Gotta win 3 sets. That's it.
What else?
They weren't happy when we won, by the way. That was Santa Cruz was not pleased with that result.
Yeah, I think that made it better to know that they were really pissed that we beat them. Yeah, that's right.
There was I don't know if you heard about this, but there was a 3-year period where Jay Wu and all by me, like we became the coach resigning team. If we beat you, the coach quit. Like
Yeah.
we went through like 4 or 5 coaches.
I get beat by this guy.
All right, I was like, oh, I got beat by Reslo and Jay Wu. I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. That was like my favorite part of my career, I think. I mean, the wins in 2020, 2019, 2018, those were the years that were really, really good. We were doing some cool stuff. But like 14, 15, 16, like I said, I went on this run where we would beat teams and the coach would quit. I was like, this is awesome. I think I have like 5 scalps. So this is great. All right. So
Yeah.
you mentioned the Santa Cruz game. What's another good game for you?
Um, I mean, we had a few opportunities to do some really. We played some good teams and lost, but I don't know. Where I guess I think we could have done a little bit better that last season where we played Riv.
Mm.
We lost that match, but I think it was very winnable, and still don't know how we lost it, to be honest.
Yeah, and that one would have been big. I mean, if anyone who's followed my meager career, like out of all the teams, I've never beaten Riv. Like I've beaten everybody else, with the exception of Springfield. I haven't beaten Springfield, but the expectation for Jay Wood to beat Springfield wasn't on the table really. It was, I've beaten. We stole a set from them a couple of times. Um, certainly would have loved to beat Springfield. I mean, Charlie's really, really good coach, and it would have been a nice thing to do. But they weren't in our conference. It didn't have to happen. I love that we got Cal at Nazareth. I love that we got UC Santa Cruz. Like that was a big one because when I got into the business, all I heard was that if the top 4 teams are always Juniata, Springfield, Santa Cruz, and Riv. So to get any of those was a big, big deal. But yeah, that Riv match, like I said, there was a couple times I got close to him, just couldn't figure it out. Right, just couldn't figure it out. And that match in particular, I remember feeling pretty good. Like that was the type of match that, as a coach, you experience from time to time where you feel pretty good. It's a good match. It's competitive, but you like you like things are happening. You like the way things are unfolding. Like, all right, this is going to be fine for us. This is good. We're winning the matchups we need to win. We're doing the things we need to do. But then in the back of your head, you sort of know that if they do this particular thing and we forget to do our job, the wheels come off real fast. And I remember watching it unfold going, oh boy. Like this is not good. And I remember it was for them, the scouting report was, hey, we gotta really not let them score in the middle. Like they had a middle that had a hammer, but he wasn't dynamic. He wasn't like in the old days for them where this dude would just fly and come out of nowhere and do crazy stuff. He was pretty grounded. He just had an arm.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he was the focal point. If we can eliminate their middle attack, we like what we can do. And you and Jody Holloway had that assignment of support blocking with the middle and keeping that kid under control. And the first set we lost, we're right in there, and then Jody forgets his assignment. That kid bounces the ball, and it just ignited Riv. And I was like, oh no, that's the one thing we can't let happen. We end up losing that set, and then we win a set, and then the wheels fell off at the end. Like we couldn't score. We got stuck in one rotation, and we couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
And the good thing about Coach Kolick is that he reads that stuff better than anybody. Hey, they're stuck. We're going to serve them so that they can't get out of it easily. And that's how we dropped it. But yeah, we were equals. If not, we might have been slightly better. But their middle, like I remember that middle play, I was like, oh, that's the one. That's the one we can't let happen. And we just did. And now we're in trouble.
I mean, the thing is, though, if we get to play that full season, we would have seen them again.
Yep.
Would have had another chance at it, and maybe again in the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, hindsight's 2020. I mean, now that we know that the season ends there, it's a dreadful loss. Like we also had a dreadful loss against LaSalle. That LaSalle match we should not have lost.
Yeah.
Like that was as brutal as it gets. And I don't even remember the Wentworth match after that because it didn't matter. Like damage was done.
Was that our last match day of the season?
That was the last match of that season.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, you wonder why I'm a roller coaster of a human being. My last season as a college coach, my last match as a college coach was just a disaster. It's not great, but how things unfolded. But those, yeah, I mean, do you remember that what was it? What was that team that we played in Rochester?
Geneva?
Geneva. Yeah. Do you remember that match?
Yeah, I do.
That match was amazing.
That was fun.
That was a real fun match. Big Josh Pitzer coming out of left field to block that dude to finish it.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat.
He had like 5 or 6 that match, right?
Yeah. Josh, one of the hardest working kids I worked with. He was just he was a kid that when he started, actually I was telling this story the other day, actually to my kids. I think one of my kids was like, "Hey, when you go recruit guys, like, how does it usually go down?" I said, "Well, normally we don't go to high schools, but you try to win your backyard." And at the same time, Zach Turner and Josh Pitzer were both guys that I recruited, landed both of them. But Zach was the better prospect. Like Zach was 6'8", pretty good bounce on him, huge arm, goofy footed, but still he could score. And Josh was more of a basketball guy, like didn't have huge rise on him. He was just big. He was just a big boy. And I said, Coventry was playing North Kingstown, and Zach played for Coventry, and Josh played for North Kingstown. And so I go to the match, and as soon as the match is over, I make a beeline to Zach Turner, and I start talking with Zach, and I talk with Zach, talking with Zach. I really want Zach. And then meanwhile, as I'm talking with him, I turn and look, and Pitts is waiting for me to come over and talk to him. And Pitts wasn't high on my list at the time. Like I needed Zach. Zach was the guy that was going to change things in the middle, not Pitzer. So I'm done with Zach. I motor over to Pitts and start talking with him. Met his mother. His mother was a really wonderful lady. Just they were pleasant and awesome, like really cool. But I spent way more time with Zach than I did with Josh. Both ended up coming, and in the end, you could argue that Josh had a better career. Like Josh worked his tail off, and like he was our last middle. Because at the time, our middles, we had big boys everywhere. We had a 6'9" guy from California. We had a 6'8" guy. Yep. We had all sorts of big people. And I remember after the first year, Josh was sort of down. And he came to me and he was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And I said, listen, man, like you, out of all the middles, you have made the furthest amount of progress. Like you have improved your game better than anybody else. Yeah, you're still behind these guys, but you're closer than you think. And really, you're going to work this hard just to get to the door and then turn away, kick the door down. And the next 3 years, he became the guy. Like he became a real important piece for us. Whereas, Turner worked hard too, but Turner had other issues, and certainly there was some weird stuff for him that he had to deal with. And I just don't think he panned out as well as Josh did. Love both guys; they're great guys, both of them. But if you think about the careers, Pitts probably had a better career, and it was just through hard work and sheer determination. He's like, I'm going to be better, and you put that stuff into. I mean, what was your daily grind when you were playing? You came in knowing that you were going to be pretty good, but you didn't stop there. You kept grinding and wanted to get better. What was your process as you went through that?
Honestly, I don't know. I came in not knowing really where I stood.
Really?
Yeah. I think I was just sort of surprised to be recruited to go play in college. And I was like, this is sweet. Whatever I get out of this is it's all gravy after that. It's like I knew I could hit the ball, but I just didn't know, especially to start out. I felt like I was getting aced every other serve. So Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, you weren't wrong.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, as I already said, it was really just working on passing. I just spent so much time thinking about passing the ball.
Yeah, and you improved. You got to the point where you earned the starting spot on the floor, and then you never left. And you were, a huge part of what we were doing. Uh, but you had to have a process, right? You had to really decide that was something you were going to do. And what were you doing? Like every practice, were you taking extra reps? Were you working on form? Were you talking to people? Like I think it's one of the things that people would want to know watching this interview is like, well, how did you get there? Because you have some natural talent, right? You can jump. That's natural talent. And you put in the work physically to make your body fit enough to be able to do all these things. But the other aspect is how did you get your skill set to be where it mattered to you, right?
Yeah. So it was a lot of like I talked to Garapi a lot about passing the ball because he was, I mean, Garapi will love to talk.
He will
So
talk. He will.
yeah, a lot of times I would just ask him one thing, like, hey, how can I do better in like this one situation? You know what I mean? Like I don't know, the ball is coming at me higher than I expect, but it's too late to get my hands up. And then I would get a 20-minute explanation. Anything I could ever want to know about passing the ball when it's too high on me. So Garapi was very helpful.
Mm,
Uh, and then also just watching the guys in the gym around me and seeing what they do better. I think I definitely could have done a better job of just asking them,
mm,
what do you do in this situation? Obviously, it's good to ask your coaches, but like if there's a guy doing it better than you, just ask him what he does.
right.
But yeah, I would watch the guys like Seda, like Nick Potato,
Hmm.
all those guys, just seeing how they move around the court, what they're doing with their platform.
Mm,
Just watching guys who do it better than you is really helpful.
yeah. Yeah. It's how I became a pretty good basketball player, to be honest. Like I sort of mimicked everything that I saw around me. Like, right, this guy's doing it this way, so I got to make my body look like that. And the idea of mimicking and seeing how someone else does it and be like, I want to look like that. So now what do I have to do to make it similar? And by processes, you get the success that you're looking for. And that makes a ton of sense for me.
Yeah. And then the other thing really was a lot of film
Mm.
because I found it, I had never watched film until I got to college. So then when I watched myself play on Huddle, there were so many times where like I would watch myself make a play and then I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? Those moments because you get to see that for all the players around you when you're actually playing. You see someone, you're like, what were you thinking right there? But you never get to
Oh,
see that for yourself from the outside.
oh
So
yeah.
it's really helpful to see myself in those moments. And it's like, in that moment, what were you thinking? Like, what
Yeah.
was going through your brain?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of film watch. I used to not be into it as much because I didn't know how to do it right. Right. Like what generally happens as a coach when you set up a film session with your team is that if you have no structure or no idea of what's supposed to happen, your team sits there and watches it and they basically hoot and holler when something good happens and when something bad happens.
Yeah.
Right? Like I mean that's really all that happens. You just sort of make fun of each other or go, wow, that was pretty damn awesome. But then I got better at it and I started making structures around it and I started to get more out of it. And now I'm such a believer in the idea that if you watch film with a real good idea of trying to improve your game and based on the structure that you're trying to work through, you can make real huge jumps in improvement. Like you can just, like you said, you can start visualizing what was I thinking in that moment? What was I trying to do in that moment? And then, what's the proper thing to do in that moment? Like you may, like let's say you're passing a ball and it goes high on you and you try to get your hands up and you basically maul it with your hands and you're thinking to yourself, what was I thinking there? Like it's really not a really great way to pass the ball and I didn't get a good result. And then if you're realizing that your structure says, hey, if I'm if I pre-hop and I'm moving a little bit better, maybe I can go off to the side. You know what I mean? It's a bad example, but the point is that if you have a structure that you're trying to build off of, then you can take those moments. I was thinking this, but if I can change it slightly to this, maybe I get a better improvement. And that all comes from watching the cue on the film, right? I saw myself do this. I don't want to do that again. So now I got to do this,
Yeah.
really focus, do this instead. Terrible examples by me today, but point is film helps a ton. And I think everyone should watch it. And those that do watch it, I think they improve dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think it's very helpful.
All right. So now that you're playing for club for Rhode Island and there is some talk that maybe maybe I might bring a VLA team to Rhode Island. Now you want to move to right side. So you're going to give up on passing completely. That's what I've been told.
That's yeah, sounds like fun. Just block and hit. Just hit the ball hard and block.
See, that's the evolution of getting old.
Those are the two best parts of volleyball.
Yeah, well, I mean, the evolution of getting old is that you play a real prime position like middle or left side, and then as you get older and your body is like, oh, this stinks, you move to right side because then it's just easier. I never understand why players don't want to play right side. Like it's the best position on the field. Big blocking, big hitting, big serving,
Yep.
good as it gets. And then once your body can't do that anymore, then you start setting the ball because that's you don't swing anymore. And then you end as a libero because you just sort of stand in one spot and see if you can touch the ball. So you've started your evolution to your decline, Jack. Moving to the right side.
That's all right. Hopefully it's graceful. My fault.
You still serve the hell out of the ball too, right? I mean, you must be generating aces on aces in Rhode Island.
That's one of the things I also discovered I needed to be better at when I went and played with bounce.
Mm.
I just wasn't hitting the ball with any real pace.
Mm.
I figured out that if I changed my arm swing a little bit, I could put a lot more heat on the ball. So
is it more about contact and wrist snap, or is it more about what did you change on your arm to get you more steam?
it's more about making the swing like a full body motion, where as I jump, my left hand goes up towards the ball, and then I open up real big, and then you get the stretch across your full body, and then your whole arm basically becomes a whip, rather than just having it be a shoulder motion where you're kind of like if you just move with the shoulder, you can only go so fast. But
has it been better for injury? Like your shoulder feels better?
Shoulder feels great, yeah. I kind of think, kind of getting down the rabbit hole here, but I kind of think that that's more how I used to hit in high school and then earlier in college. And then I spent a lot of time lifting weights and mostly in like one manner. And that kind of changed how I moved my arms. But I think I realized that and got away from it. And now I've gotten some power.
It's interesting you say that because you have the same sort of body type and the same sort of for lack of a better word, you had a better swing than Sean, but Sean Kennedy was the guy that we had at JWU. He was our first premier guy. He was 6 foot, like he had a giant vert. He probably had a bigger jump than you did, you do, and he looked like a GI Joe figure. But from his sophomore year to his junior year, he put a lot of time in the weight room. Like he got really big. And I remember his junior year, he didn't have the success that he had his sophomore year because he was so physically, there's muscles on muscles. And we used to make fun of him because he can't pass the ball because his biceps are too big, that type of thing. And I think I used that joke earlier in this interview, but it didn't, his senior year, he had a very good year, but he had slimmed down. He had lost a lot of his muscle mass. And all of a sudden the arm was better and he was able to do more. So it's very interesting because you think to yourself, hey, man, got to get bigger, got to get stronger to do the things that I want to do at a higher level, more muscle, hit harder, that type of thing. But it's not necessarily that. There's still, you want to be more, it's still more technique and you still want to be fit, but you don't want to be over muscular.
Yeah, you got to be able to move right.
Yeah. But he put in, I remember when he walked in junior year, I was like, my God, did you fall into the weight room and never got out? Like that's but yeah, he slimmed down and had a great senior year. Do you think that happened to you? You think you put on too much muscle and then it became sort of an issue?
Yeah, I think I lost some like relative motion in my shoulder. I wasn't able to like fully extend overhead, and then I was
Mm.
side arming it a little bit.
Oh, that couldn't feel good for the shoulder either.
I never noticed anything. I'm sure long term it wouldn't have been good, but
Mm.
it wasn't for too long.
Yeah. So what does the future hold for you, man? What are you looking forward to do next?
Really still figuring that out. I'll be done at URI in December of 24.
Mhm.
So that's a little ways away.
Not as far away as you think.
Yeah, honestly, it can't come fast enough because I'm sick of being a student.
Yeah, you've actually done
Uh,
a pretty long tour as a student. So,
yeah, it's time to. I want to just have a job, clock out, go home, be done.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I'll be coaching in South County. Obviously, I guarantee at least the next 2 seasons. This one and the next one.
Yeah.
Um, beyond that, we'll see. I would really like to keep coaching, but I want to see the world too. So
Well, see the world during the summer, then come on back and coach some South County volleyball.
South County volleyball here in the wonderful state of Rhode Island.
Well, Rhode Island is beautiful. I mean, we take it for granted because it's a small state and has lots of issues. Well, many states have lots of issues, but it's a small state. But as you start traveling the country and traveling the world, it's still pretty beautiful here. It's the reason why traveling you get to see different things, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that travel just to come to Rhode Island. So sort of
That's true. Yeah.
there's a lot of very, very wealthy and political people that love to come here as well for their vacation. So, they could choose anywhere in the world. They choose Rhode Island. So it's kind of interesting, right? But yeah, I mean, the other thing too is if I get a college coaching job somewhere, I got to drag you to it. So
Well, it's not going to be too far from here if that happens, right?
no, my wife loves Rhode Island, so we're not going anywhere. So we're looking at you, Roger Williams, and Salve Regina, and Rick, and Bryant, and URI, and PC, and
Make it happen.
whomever. Probably won't return to JWU, but who knows? Maybe even those guys open up and I put my hat in the ring, and gonna need a nice crew. You and Ben Lind have been my guys for as long as I can remember. So, but then if it, I was just thinking about this, if it opens up, you need to get your masters because you still have eligibility from COVID years. You could play.
I could not. I'll be 28 years old, still in school. I'm going to be a decade older than the freshmen we play against.
That'd be so sweet. And you'd still be knocking heads. No, no, you stink. You stink. Get off the floor. Maybe calling you old man and stuff.
Yeah, I get that now.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, the URI guys?
Yep. I am kind of old.
I guess it's true, but you're also their top attacker by a lot.
It evens out.
That's the most political thing I've ever seen you say. I'm not going to be on tape res talking about being the best attacker. No way.
You win some, you lose some.
Awesome, man. Well, cool. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the show and certainly, talking a little bit about your volleyball journey and where you've been going and, what's coming up next. And certainly everyone should, do you guys get fans at club volleyball? I know it's different than varsity because varsity is sort of NCAA. I mean, not that we got a lot of fans, but they sort of try to create a university environment around all the varsity sports. So they try to do that at URI.
Not really. I mean, we still get a few fans because we've got like friends and family, and especially at URI, a lot of the students are pretty local.
Sure.
Sometimes the women's volleyball team comes and watches.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice. We still get some people.
Cool. So when's your next match? When do you have your schedule yet?
I think we've got a tournament sometime in early November coming up. I think we're going to VU maybe.
Oh yeah. Oh, BU's a fun place to play.
Yeah. And they've got a decent team too.
Yeah. Eddie Del Signore used to be a huge part of that BU club team.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played for BU. I mean, he got his law degree at Boston University, and then all throughout that time he played, and then when he left, he actually coached it for a little bit and was sort of running all those tournaments, which is funny because he was the coach or he was either the coach or the lead administrator when I got the job at Johnson Wales. So like the very first thing I did was call Ed and say, "Hey man, like I got this gig, looking forward to coming to the BU because that's what that tournament's called, right? It's called the BU." And he's like, "Yeah, Jay was banned from the BU." I was like, "Really?" Like, yeah,
That's
I guess you had a guy or two that was acting like a jackass, and one of you guys hurt another guy. And I said, "Well, listen, man, Jay Woo's under new management. I can assure you that those things aren't going to happen. Can we please attend?"
did they let you in?
Yeah, he did. You know what I mean? Helps to know some people.
Yeah.
And then I think we finished, middle of the pack because with the BU, it used to be because the rules were different for rules continue to change and evolve in NCAA, but it used to be that during that time, you could have, you know, competitions. I think there was two competitions or one competition or whatever, and most people used the BU to do it. So you would go to the BU and play, and it was this massive tournament, huge moneymaker for Boston University's club men's volleyball program, but also just a great opportunity and a great environment to play in. And you get all these club teams, but also like 6 to 7 Division III teams that were in their non-traditional season and working some things out. And normally those teams would also split. So you'd have your your Riviera A team, your Riviera B team, your JWU A team, your JWU B team, and we didn't have an A and B team that year. We just had a team, and we rolled in there and we saw what real volleyball was like. And it took some. Okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. We have a lot of work to do.
That's where we're headed.
That's where we're headed. That's right. But we did split with a very very rough Wentworth team at that time as well. Like so, Wentworth actually took the trajectory that we were planning on doing and did actually made it happen. We got close, but we didn't get to we got stopped short, whereas Wentworth took off.
Yeah.
But yeah, the BU is a fun tournament. It's a good I'm glad it's still going. I know Eddie doesn't have anything to do with it anymore, but I'm glad it's still going. And you gotta tell us, you gotta let us know when you have a home tournament so we can go come see you, put some dents in the floor.
Yeah, I don't know if we got any.
Really? You're on the road the entire time?
Maybe.
Well, then when you start playing for the Rhode Island VLA, that's when we'll.
Yeah, we've got to make that happen.
I want to. I mean, I'm working on it. Got to come up with a team name. You don't like any of the names I come up with, so.
Well, you didn't like any of my names, so there we go. I like the one. The one is good. First one you came up with was that's
Yeah, I think that's probably the one, and that's probably the one we're going to use. But it's yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, certainly for a guy like me who misses, coaching at a men's level that's pretty high. Like, when I left Johnson Wales, we had created a national competitor, and it was pretty high level, and I was sitting on committees and doing some cool stuff. So, with that all being gone, it's been 3 years. The club stuff has been great, but I would love to coach a professional team of men. Like I think that'd be perfect for what I want to do, especially since there's nowhere else to go for the college stuff right now. Makes a lot of sense. And you have VLA teams in Boston, right? The Boston Bounce that you played for, and then you have what? There's a couple in Connecticut, right? There's
there's the Northeast Force in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And LVC is out of New York, so that's
Yeah.
not too much further.
Yep. Yep. And they have two different tiers too. They have tier 1 and tier 2. And now that's the one thing I'm worried about is that we're going to have to start out as a tier 2 team. And, you're a tier 1 player, but, got to start somewhere.
Well, if we get a bunch of tier 1 players, then we move up quick.
Yeah. We move up quick. So, but I think that'd be great for the state. Why not? There's so many good players in Rhode Island too. I know we've gone back and forth on that. There's a concern that that you've brought that like maybe we don't have as many good players as I think, but I think there's so many guys that have come out of the college that have done really well here that if they can if they don't have to travel to Boston to play, why not? So,
Yeah.
might be fun. Anywho, all right, Jack, thank you so much for your time. Stay well. I'll be in contact soon, and feel free to let us know when you're playing so we can get that out there so we can come see you do work, and then we'll work on that VLA thing.
All right. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
Stay well. Take care, Jack.